Amazing. Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. We're going to take you through a few slides. We will reiterate some of this information on Wednesday, so if it doesn't go in today, it'll definitely come into your brain on Wednesday. Um, Hopefully, that's the goal, anyways. So myself, Katie, and Sean are here. We're the chief educators. I'll go through that a little bit more in a minute. As I said, we're going to share some standard information that we give to the judges every year. There's some additional changes that have been made this year to the judging process that we want to take you through. And then at the end, there'll be a space and time for questions that you might have and anything that we could answer for you. So, Casey, can you let me know? Can you see that?
I can indeed, yep.
Amazing. Perfect. So this is Adjudicator Training 2025. So I suppose that's also supposed to be 2025, not 2024, so ignore that for now. But who is the awards team? And there's a few more people that are involved that you'll meet on the day. But these are the people that have been communicating with you and that you will communicate mostly with on the actual day. So Dave, the awards coordinator, Rena Hughes, the BICS chairperson, and then myself, Sean, and Casey as chief adjudicators. Sean and I, alumni from University of Galway, and Katie from TU Dublin City campus. And we'll split this presentation so you'll get to hear from all of us over the course of the next half an hour or so. So, what is our role over the course of the next week or so, particularly over the course of Wednesday and Thursday? So, the chief adjudicators were there to make sure that the marking scheme is applied correctly and that you, essentially, as adjudicators, are doing the job that we've asked you to. We're there to support you through that judging process. Sometimes there's things that aren't clear. Sometimes there's things that you would like to get some information about and help to liaise with queries, which we'll go through throughout the presentation of how you do that ethically and how you do that efficiently, and ways not to search for information and ways to get that information. Sometimes we're asked to make determinations on an issue if required. So if there is a need to break a tie vote, which very rarely happens, if there's a need to help a panel come to a decision, or there's a deadlock between a panel of no one really wants to move from their particular viewpoint, we may come in and facilitate a conversation from our experience around how that works. And to say that all of us have over 10 years of experience within BICS and within societies in our own different ways, either as participants in societies, working in societies office, or working in the realms of BICS over the last 10 or so years. We expect that all members of the judging panel commit to the judging process. So there's nothing worse for us than a panel that we put together and then one member spends the entire day on video calls for work on the day one. We do expect that when you're there at the judging panels that you are committed, that you're present. If you need to take a phone call or work call, that's no bother. Look, life gets in the way, but we would ask that you dedicate the time that you're there, the Wednesday and Thursday, to the applications that you've given. The students themselves have put a huge amount of work into writing the applications, designing the portfolios, and preparing for the interview with you. So we ask that you give them the same respect back of giving them your time over that judging process, and that you give all applications full consideration, irrespective of whether you like or don't like the particular viewpoint of the society or the particular role that the society plays within university. We're not asking you to judge whether the society is a good or bad society to have. We're asking you to judge in the context of the award that you're looking at. Do they meet the criteria to be the most improved society, the best event, the best individual, so on and so forth? Your judging panel will consist of a head adjudicator, someone that usually has 2 or more years of experience within the judging process. Generally at a BICS level, sometimes comes in from a university or college itself. And then generally 1 or 2 other judges. Some panels will have 2, some panels will have 3. Depends on how many judges we get, depends on how many panels we have, depends on where we might need people. If any of the adjudicators on your panel know additional information about a particular society, we try where possible with the information that we have about all of you to ensure that you do not have a space where you might have a conflict of interest or a bias. We do ask, if you do happen to be on a panel where you do know something about a society or individual, that you do not volunteer this to the group. We don't want it to be an unfair advantage or an unfair disadvantage to the particular society. We're asking you to judge the society or individual on the information they've presented to you, both in the application, the portfolio, and then the interview on the Thursday. All adjudicators must be equally involved. It doesn't matter whether you're the head adjudicator or not, you must be equally involved in the process, and all of your marks hold equal value. There's no casting vote from a head adjudicator in a panel. If you simply cannot make a decision about a particular society award, then you can call in myself, Katie, or Sean, or all three if you needed to have a conversation with you around how we can get to the point of a decision. But there's no casting vote for head adjudicator or non-head adjudicators. All of your marks hold equal value in the marking scheme. They're all added together and divided either by 2 or by 3, depending on the size of your panel. What is your role then as the adjudicator in terms of the context of the next week or so? So it's to follow the BICS marking schemes. It's to treat every application equally. Societies have their own aims and objectives, and your preference really doesn't matter in this particular context. It doesn't matter whether you think they should be doing something differently or something else. That's what their aims and objectives are based off of what they want to do on campuses. We ask you not to discriminate positively or negatively. We ask you to judge them on the content that they've given to you. Best society in a charity or civic category is one of those ones that we really, really like to reiterate. We don't want you to judge based off of it. Someone has gained or raised 100 grand. Sorry, whoever is
it's
not
so,
that they
it's me.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Rena. So in the context of Best Society Charity Civic, if a society has raised 100 grand or a society has raised €100, it's not about the size of the contributions they've made that we're asking you to judge, it's the impact of that. So did a society who raised €500, did they have to do more, create more resources, did something unique, did something different versus a society that raised 5 grand? We don't want you to look just solely at the figure. We want you to investigate around the context of the information that they've given to you around how that they've come to that particular contribution. And we also say sabbatical members on committees shouldn't be counted for or against societies or individuals. There we go. Continuing on, the role of the adjudicator is to be open and honest. So to declare at the start, that's also supposed to say myself or Sean as well, declare at the start of judging any conflicts of interest, communicate with your fellow judges and discuss with myself, Sean or Katie, any prior conflicts of interest that we're not aware of in advance of the panel so we can help navigate those as and when needed. We ask you not to attempt to contact the college or society under any circumstances. Sometimes you'll see a judge will notice that, oh, Casey's from TU Dublin City campus, she's over there. I have a question about a TU Dublin City campus society. I'm going to go ask her. We ask you to refrain from doing that and to come to the chief adjudicators and ask us to gain that information on your behalf, whether it's appropriate, if it is appropriate or not, and to do that through official channels, as opposed to muddying the waters and going around places and ending up with multiple different conversations and not necessarily getting the clarified information that you might need. Again, if you're just unsure about anything of the process or anything over the course of the day, just ask ourselves as the chief adjudicators, myself, Sean or Katie. And please don't make up the rules as you go along. Every year you hear a panel say, oh, well, this thing isn't true because this thing has to happen. And they've made up this really obscure rule that doesn't exist. If there's a rule that you think exists, but you're not sure how to apply it, or you're not sure how to move forward in a particular situation, ask one of us to come and have a look with you. We don't want you to just make up arbitrary rules about how the process should be enforced or not based off of what you think. We want to be sure. As I said, the students and societies that are coming to this particular event, they've put a lot of work into writing these applications and writing these portfolios and preparing for the interviews. So we want to make sure that the process is as fair as possible for them and as easy as possible for you as the adjudicator. As I said, ask. If you are happening to be the head adjudicator on your panel, you have some additional roles and responsibilities. One being that we ask you to ensure that all material provided has been looked at. So if a portfolio is sitting there, that it's been gone through, if there's a USB that they've given to you that you've looked at it, if there's a link that they want you to go to that you've gone to it, if there's a piece of information that they want you to look at that you've done that too. To make sure that your panel is correctly using the marking sheets, just to note that every marking sheet will come back to the chief adjudicators and we will look through it and make sure that the marks are correct and that all your material is filled out correctly. And Katie and Sean will take you through a couple of extra additional pieces within the actual marking sheets that we ask you to fill out. At the interview, and this is really important, particularly for the students, this is when they're mostly at their most nervous. And they can be quite terrified of coming into the adjudicators quite often to do the interview because there's a perception that the interview is there to lose them marks. We've done a lot of training this year with students and societies around changing the perception and narrative of the interview, that it is a space to gain marks, it is a space to have a conversation. So we ask that you apply the same, I suppose, attitude and environment and atmosphere to that space as well. We want you to give a fair and equal opportunity as the head adjudicator to tell the panel about their achievements. So making sure that there's space for them to ask and answer questions. Ensure that they're kept to the time schedule. That's really important. As much as we want to create a really good atmosphere, we also have to move efficiently. We have a certain amount of rooms and an extraordinary amount of interviews to get through on the Thursday. So we do ask that you keep to time. It's 15 minutes per interview. You will get a schedule. We ask that one of your panel sets a timer so that you're on time and you know where you're at, and ensuring that you move in a speedy process. And that to make sure that the judging panel has the opportunity to obtain all the information they require to make a decision. So you may think of the Wednesday evening or the Thursday morning, putting together some questions that you might want to answer or that you might want to get more information about based off of your reading of the applications. Something wasn't quite clear. So maybe you'll have a list of questions for each of the different societies or individuals. So at this point, I'm going to hand you over to Sean, who's going to take you through a little bit of what's happening during the 2 days and some of the new things this year.
Thanks, Cam. So we'll look first of all at I suppose, the schedule that you'll expect as an adjudicator over the Wednesday and the Thursday. So most of you will probably be landing down to Sligo on the Wednesday morning, and we're intending to kick off at circa 10:30 a.m. for the kind of initial meet and greet session with the other adjudicators, and we'll also go through this adjudicator training session again so that everybody's on board with it. And it's probably a better opportunity as well for people to ask questions when they're face to face in the room as well, because they're, I suppose, they're directly in front of us.
Yes, sir. 1 sec.
So that'll kick off at around 10:30 a.m. Then around 11:30 to 1:30 we'll start our adjudication period 1. Now, depending on the time that people land, that might start around 12 p.m. we will see on the day. But you can see there, as outlined, you've got a lunch break in from 1:30 to 2:30, and then we've got dinner from 7 p.m. So really any time where you're not actually eating is probably time that you're going to be spending adjudicating. So depending on what panel you have, you could be reading quite a lot of documents. You could be lucky and you might have only 4 nominees in your category, or you might have 7 or 8. And if you have 7 or 8, it means you've got a lot of reading and a lot of marking to do. So it's important that you kind of keep bearing that in mind in the time. So if we look maybe down at the schedule for day 1, really your goal is to provisionally mark everything from the applications and the portfolio. So that means you have to have read everything at least once. And ideally, you've also had some of the conversations with the other panelists and adjudicators to get a sense of, like, well, where are we going rank-wise? Who's coming out higher than the others? Where do we think are areas of contention and where we could maybe ask some more questions? So ideally, then you want to have your sheets filled in for your marks for the applications and the portfolios. And bear in mind, there's a reason that we don't have 1 adjudicator per panel. We have 3 or 2 per panel. The reason being is one person was going to miss information. If you read everything yourself, if I read through 7 applications and Cam reads through the same 7 applications, there may be points that I don't pick up, there may be points that Cam don't pick up. So where that sort of whole holistic approach comes in is that discussion between yourself and the other panelists as well. And that way you know that you're covering all the information fairly. So ideally, if you can get maybe a preliminary conversation going at the end of day 1, that's great. But if not, if we move on to the next slide, you do have an opportunity the next morning as well before the interviews start. Now, the pressure is on Wednesday. I suppose the pressure is more so on the Thursday because, as we all know, we have to be at the awards banquet by 7 p.m. So if that's our end point, that means we have to have all our slides prepared and all our information into the adjudicators, probably at least 2 hours before that point. So really, if we look maybe at the 3 to 4 p.m., the final deliberation, your aim is to try and get your marks in by 4 p.m. to the adjudicators. Now, that's not always possible, but certainly that's what you should be aiming for when it comes to, I suppose, like organizing the interviews and making sure that you get marks input into the Excel sheets. Now, it's good to fill out the Excel sheets as you go. So particularly when you're doing the interviews during day +2, you're probably as well filling in your scores for the interviews immediately after the interview is conducted. And with that in mind, you really have to keep tight to the time. So you're given 15 minutes for each interview. There's a 20-minute slot there, which means you've got maybe a minute or two beforehand and 2 to 3 minutes after that interview where you can have that quick discussion and maybe input your marks. So it's important that you're actually fairly militaristic with the timeline for interviews. Don't let them go over the 15 minutes, otherwise you're going to run into trouble. There'll be lunch probably between 1 to half 1. It'll probably fluctuate slightly from that depending on what way you have your interviews. So you don't have that much time there for the lunch. And again, if you have 7 or 8 interviewees coming through, you're going to be tight for time for the interviews that start at 11:30. So really, timekeeping is the key, I think, for both of those 2 slides, and being efficient with your time. Okay, so what's new this year? So there's a couple of changes we've made. So the first change is there's no Best Publicity Campaign award this year. I think the decision was taken really because it's slightly redundant. It's kind of covered by other award categories already. The second decisions we made is around Best Poster Award. So this year it will be voted on by students. Now, I remember last year there was a lot of students in a panic wondering where they'd got their votes for Best Poster in the Clayton, not realizing that it was actually adjudicated by a panel. So we've kind of went with that approach this year. So similar to the Best Photo Award, each college will have 3 votes and they can use them to vote for their favorite poster. And that alleviates a bit of, I suppose, hassle when it comes to organising panels on our side. And the third point then, the best screen and the best video will be judged externally, so they won't be judged on the day. So really, I suppose the panels that will be adjudicated over the Wednesday and the Thursday are more likely than not, most of them will have an interview aspect, so there'll be that element to it. And then the final point, we're encouraging students this year to use digital portfolios. So any of the, I suppose, recurring judges or people who have judged before, you'll be familiar that the portfolio documents, they can range in their kind of vibrance and in their shape indeed. So the physical documents, and that kind of puts a lot of pressure on students to prepare this masterpiece at a time of year when they're probably in the middle of final year exams or other things as well. So the digital portfolios is there as an option this year. It's really to encourage them to do the stuff online. Usually makes it a bit easier for the adjudicators too, because particularly when it comes to links and so forth, like that they're there and they can be clicked on using a screen rather than as a hard copy. Now, the hard copy portfolios are still welcome this year. It's not a hard and fast rule, but we're definitely encouraging the digital because that, I suppose, is the way forward as well. So we've had some marking scheme changes as well. So most of the applications now, I suppose for anyone who've been adjudicated before COVID, you would probably be used to most of the award applications been marked in total out of 200. So 90 for the application, 90 for the interview, 10 for the portfolio, and then 10 discretionary on top of that. So really we've moved back to that marking scheme across most of the categories. I suppose they were changed during COVID on foot of us not being able to do any face-to-face interviews, and some of them didn't always, like the markings, I suppose, were maybe a wee bit out of line in the last few years. So we've cleaned those up. Applications have been reviewed and streamlined to make reading and writing them easier as well. So you'll note that there's a lot more advice points on some of the applications as well, more targeted advice as to what they should be putting into those application questions, because that's kind of the information that the adjudicators will want to see, what you guys will want to see as you're adjudicating over the days. So if you're a returning judge, please note that there will be different marks and there might be slight layout changes to some of the forms, and some questions might be worth more marks or less than what they were previously, and some questions may not exist anymore. We might have removed them just to kind of streamline the process. And if you're a new judge, just read the applications carefully and see what is the marked questions and what questions just give you context. So there will be some questions, I think at the end of most of the applications, there's a question about, is there any other information you'd like to volunteer? And of course, it doesn't get any specific marks in that box, but it might be helpful for giving an overall impression mark and contributing to the discretionary mark for that particular nominee. So just to bear that in mind. So I'm going to finish on this slide, and I think Katie is taking on for the remainder. So making a judgment. So this is an old slide that will be familiar to any of the recurring or the returning judges. So it's important that you mark across all applications with the same scale. Now, some questions are marked out of 5, some are marked out of 10, some out of 15. So really what's important here is that you're applying the same, I suppose, relative scale. So let's say, for example, we have a question that's marked out of 10. If you're given a mark that's between 1 and 3, it's probably fair, it's probably below average, is probably the best way of maybe describing it, that there's a definite room for improvement. So there may be, you know, like they're doing the activity as it were, but there's plenty of room for improvement there. Then if we're marking between 3 and 6, then we're saying ultimately that society is average. They're performing their duties as a society, but they're probably not in the best category, or certainly not in that particular answer that they're given. 6 to 8 then is what we'd expect as competent, so a well-organized society. And then really for 8 to 10, if anyone is scoring in the higher bracket, it means that they're ticking all the boxes. And also they have some sort of wow factor. So there's something in that application that you're reading and thinking, wow, I haven't seen that in other societies, or they're doing something better than, say, their comparative nominees are doing. And I suppose for all adjudicators, remember, the clue is in the title. You're an adjudicator. You're there to make a judgment. And that can be difficult sometimes, you know, like you're going to say, particularly when it comes to the interview, because you're meeting a lot of enthusiastic students across all the categories. But at the end of the day, we need to pick a winner. And it's important that you kind of use this scale to be clear as to who's going to come out as the winner. And with that in mind as well, half marks are a big no-no when it comes to this. Because ultimately, you know, if you start giving everyone 3.5 marks, what will happen at the end is when you try to evaluate who the winner is based on the scores, you're going to come out with a lot of people that are coming in and around the same mark, and that's going to make your job a lot more difficult. So make the judgment call. Is it a 6? Is it a 7? Is it an 8? Give it the full score, and that will help you then come to the actual what your ultimate job is, which is picking a winner.
Great, thanks, John. So I'm just going to go through some of the information queries with everybody. Oh, too far, Cam. Thanks. So you take notes if you're unclear on anything and just try and clarify the details with your fellow judges. As Sean said, sometimes you miss things as you're going through, but somebody else in the panel might actually have the answer for the query that you have. It's also really, really important that you are taking notes while you're reading the applications, because it comes in really handy when it comes to the interviews, that you actually have questions you can ask the students if it is a panel that you have an interviews with. If you're still unclear about something, you contact either myself, Cam, or Sean. And then if any of the judges know the additional information about a particular society, it cannot be volunteered to the group. So again, if you get put on a panel and when you do sit down first thing on Wednesday, if you think that you shouldn't maybe be judging this society, you need to tell us and we can do a bit of rejigging around. It's just better that you know, can't give anybody you know, an unfair advantage or disadvantage. So do not attempt to contact the college or society under any circumstances. All the queries must come through us. I know that there might be, as Cam said, somebody sitting in the room who works in that particular college. Allow us to be the vessels that go and get those queries for you. Don't be trying to go over and having like small little chats with people on your own. You are the judge, not the investigator. So you just need to be assessed on what's being presented in front of you, not this information that is just being said to you by someone in the room. There'll be no questions. You have to go through the correct process, and unofficial queries are going to be considered unethical. So it's very, very, very important to do that. So then just around confidentiality, again, the societies have honestly and openly shared this information with you for the purpose of the assessment. So please don't keep or store any copies of their information. Don't share any of the results of discussions outside the judging panel. So this is really, really important. And this has happened a couple of times in the 15 years I've been involved, where a judge at the banquet, after the awards have been done, is having a drink, and a society that they just interviewed came up to them and they were like, oh, well done. I thought you were brilliant, but you know, the marks just weren't there for you this year. That is not a conversation that a judge or an adjudicator should be having with a student group. They will get their feedback forms after the awards. They will have all this information, which I'm going to go through with you now. So it's just really important that you kind of avoid having any type of conversation with any nominees from your panels, because you just don't want to upset anybody on the night, or you don't want it to be brought back to say, oh, well, this judge said this to us after the awards were done. And then obviously under no circumstance should the judge speak to any of the nominees about how their interview went. So this is our marking scheme. So this is just an example of the best departmental. So you will receive these marking schemes. We're using Aoife, who's in the chat or in the call, I think, here as the example. So you will fill in your individual marks here as a judge across one sheet. Anywhere that has a 0, that is going to automatically tally up the marks for you, so you don't have to fill them in. Just very, very important to note the new changes with the new application form, that aims objectives maybe were worth 8 marks last year, it's 5 marks this year. So just make sure that you're not just assuming the marks. Every judge on your panel will fill one of these in for themselves with all the actual nominees, and then there is a last page that automatically adds up all the scores and then averages them out based off how many people were judging on the panel, and it will give you who's first, who's second, and who's third. So the maths is just kind of done for you guys, and the real important part about having panel discussions is if you actually don't think that maybe the person who's coming first is the person who's coming first, so you have to still really review and look at your marks and say, okay, should we maybe bump somebody up one part or 1 point on this section or whatever way. But it's very important to have these discussions with your panels. So you can complete the marking process on paper first or use the Excel. Again, I know it was mentioned about the digital portfolios. I just want to really reiterate, it's very important. If you have a laptop, you bring a laptop with you. So as a judge, it would be great if you could bring your work laptops with you just to be able to type stuff up and look at the hyperlinks and stuff that are being sent through and review the actual digital portfolios. So then on the panel discussion, you're going to wait until all the judges have reviewed and fully marked the application and the portfolio before starting it. This is important because you don't want somebody to, hear an opinion that you might have on something and then, they haven't read the application yet. So then they're basing they've already have a feeling about this application in front of them before they've reviewed it because they heard you say something. So wait until everybody has read at least the applications before you start discussing those, and then the portfolios before you actually start reviewing those. Discuss why you chose to give the nominees a particular mark. Look at each other's marks and question things if you really don't say it's right. If you've given somebody an 8 and somebody else has given them a 4, ask them why they've given them that 4. It might pull out a question for the interview. It might be something that you have to bring to us and discuss, but it's really important. Discuss any close mark rankings or differences. The last thing we actually want is for the difference between first, second, and third to be 0.5 of a marks, like a half a mark. That is, I've been in the receiving end of getting a bunch of results back and having 4 colleges in 1 year, or 4 of my societies in 1 year coming back, and the only difference between first and second place when they didn't win was 0.5 marks. So just be really conscious of that. A winner should have at least 1 to 2 marks in the difference to the next person who's come in second. And then maintain your mark or adjust if another judge is giving you a different point of view. So again, be open to listening to what the other judges think about how they've perceive the information in front of them. Don't just think that your mark is final and that's the way it should be. Now, the final nominee feedback form. So again, cannot iterate enough. Take notes during the process. Perhaps, divide out drafting comments between the judges. You do give comments to people. We try and make it a bit like a kind of constructive, a little bit like a compliment sandwich. So obviously you tell them well done for everything you did this year, and then you might put a bit of constructive criticism in it, and then you'll finish off with it. Wishing you all the best and hope that you maintain the society and it continues on as well as it did. You have to give feedback to every single nominee. So this is why it's so important that you are writing down things as you go. Each nominee will receive the final panel mark and the feedback, but again, it has to be constructive. Please don't tell them you didn't win because, your budget was all over the place. That's not constructive. And then on the night, when we go to our award presentation announcement, we're going to have one short sentence that's going to be read out. That's an encouraging tone. So the adjudicators were very impressed with the high standard of all the applications. But for their X, the winner is X. So avoid ruining the suspense by referring to a gender or a specific activity. Do you know what I mean? So don't be saying this group did an amazing dance routine, and then everybody knows, oh, it must be the dance society in that particular college they're after winning because they're on the nominee list. And that is it from me. So it's question time.
So can I just pop in there? I'm not too sure, did we cover the new appendix? Because that might come as a big surprise for some people. Have we talked about that? I don't think so.
We haven't yet. No, we didn't include that in the
Brilliant.
in the
Okay,
slide.
well, just before you ask questions, so because for a lot of years we've had physical portfolios. And now we're moving towards virtual portfolios. We would get things like application forms that say, check out this link here, but it was printed. Your applications are going to be hard copy. So this year we've introduced an appendix. See, the appendix is literally a list of their events, a link to the Constitution, any other links they want to put in, and a lot of details about their finance. So instead of it sort of morphing strangely in their portfolio, it's like this will be the source of just plain data. Which hopefully will be very, very helpful, because sometimes you might find that your application could be quite wordy and you're trying to work your way through the complexity of what they're trying to describe to you, or the portfolio could be absolutely stunningly beautiful, but you can't actually figure out how many events they have. So the appendix won't look pretty, but it's really important. It'll be a PDF, you'll have access to it, so you'll be able to check out all the links and everything else. So that's why your laptops are really important. I can stop talking now.
Perfect. So that's it from us. So the rest of it is just over to yourselves if there's any questions or things that isn't clear. So you'll have an opportunity on Wednesday as well to ask us some more questions. I will be around for the 2 days. You'll probably be sick of seeing us by the end of Thursday. But if we'll be around, if there's anything else that we can help you with. But yeah, if there's any questions, please go ahead and ask.
Or throw them in the chat, whatever works for you guys. I suppose if there's not any questions, you may absolutely leave and go
I'd
back
like
to your
to,
day of work.
I'd just like to say welcome to one of our virtual adjudicators who will be working online. So thank you very much for all of you who have turned up today, who will be sent out the application forms. You'll have access to them. You'll have access to the marking sheets and all the rest. And we'll be expecting you to get back to us by, I'd say, 2 p.m. on Thursday with your results. And it is important the students don't see the difference between judges in Sligo and judges doing it virtually. So do fill in the marking sheets as well with the feedback, because it means an awful lot to the students.
I have one question for you. Is there anything that we should be considering if you get an application that's like quite obviously heavily AI written? Because I know that it's becoming quite a hot topic at the moment in university with regards to students falling back on AI for a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a discussion that we had at the forum and other places around AI, and I'm not sure exactly where we ended up with the conversation, but I think what the initial thoughts from my mind from what we had, and Sean or others, correct me if I'm wrong, was that if you find that there's an application that you know to be like 100% written by AI, then as chief adjudicators, we can have a conversation with you about how you might go forward with that particular application. We're pretty lenient in some senses in terms of if a student has used it to reduce word count, because there is word counts within some of the sections, as long as the original content was theirs, and they use it to reduce word count, that would be okay. If they're using it to help with grammar or spelling, that would be okay. But something that's 100% wholly generated by AI that you feel like they haven't written a single thing and it makes no sense, bring that to the attention of the chief adjudicators and we can help you navigate the next steps of that.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. That's kind of where I felt with it as well.
Aimer?
Just for clarification on that, so like for example, in our own society awards in UCC, we had someone that left like the ChatGPT prompt in their application, so naturally we knew 100% that was AI. But like obviously we can speculate and stuff, but like how are we to 100% know if something is AI, or is it just going off speculation? Because I wouldn't want students to be disadvantaged either if we think it's AI and it's actually not, like, because like it's quite often that like students that are neurodiverse or things like that would get flagged for AI more likely than neurotypical students. Just
Yeah,
because of the
it's
way
not-
some people phrase things, and I'd hate to see those students disadvantaged because of this.
Yeah, it's not to say that the application would be discounted on the basis of the use of AI. It would be whether or not there was information in there that was actually able to be judged and was correct. So it's more so understanding what information relates actually to what the society has done or is doing versus what doesn't make sense. Very often and Sean, if I'm wrong, from last year when we did come across issues around kind of the potential use of AI, it wasn't that the writing was different, it was that the actual sentences made no sense. So the judges actually couldn't figure out what they were trying to say, because it didn't flow in a way that actually helped them understand what the student was trying to say or what they were trying to actually answer. It made no connection to the question being asked. And in that case, the chief adjudicator stepped in and we tried to interpret what they might have been trying to say and figure out from there.
I
Perfect,
think
thank you.
probably my thinking on it would be is, well, if we got an AI written application, is that going to have any bearing on whether or not they're the best society overall? To my mind, I don't think it does. And ultimately, I suppose, because the process is split between application, portfolio, and also interview, the interview is really a good opportunity for you to tease out some of those issues. Like, as Cam was saying, like if they're just using it to kind of tidy up the word count or so forth, to my mind, that's not a major problem as such, but whether or not there's a question mark on the integrity of the information being put across, that's the real question mark. And I don't, now I could be completely wrong on this, but I can't imagine an AI written application can just generate or fabricate what the society has done over the full year either. So I think it's one of those issues that it's because it's an unknown where we might overthink it a bit. I don't think it will have that critical and an element on whether or not the best society wins.
And just on that, that's why we've introduced the appendix that literally is facts. So last year we definitely got an application that we all thought was AI generated. It turned out to be very obvious from the interview that it wasn't, and that was a big relief. But it didn't affect how we marked them. It literally was, how many events did you have? What were they like? Did you do all the things that you said you could do? And I don't know that yet that AI is that clever. And as Sean said, that it can invent stuff because you have your appendix, you have the portfolio. They have to show you stuff as well as just talk about it. So it might be a bit like reading molasses if you have an AI generated answer, and it certainly will be potentially more challenging for the judges. But ultimately, it's did they actually do the stuff at the end of the day? Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like our role as a chief adjudicator is to try and get as much information from the applications to the adjudicators as possible. So our approach to this is to try and make sure that if we can interpret the information to make sense and to be relevant to the society, then we will do that. The only time that it would ever be discounted is if it was a case of we could not make sense of what the student or students were trying to say. Any other questions?
If not, we look forward to seeing you in Sligo. If for any of you that haven't been there before, it is the most life-affirming, extraordinary event when you see into the world of societies and what students actually do. I find it very inspirational. So I'm sure you all will as well. The adjudicators tend to be a lovely bunch. We will have an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better. We've got some really interesting people coming in on the Thursday with stands. Stand is one of them. So if you have a little bit of time, you might be able to stop by and say hello. And we tend to make it absolutely sure, and you probably mentioned this already, that we don't discuss. Students potentially could be there on the Wednesday, because certainly Wednesday evening, because it's quite a distance for a lot of people. So in any public area, do not discuss under any circumstances anything about your adjudication. Always make sure that you're in a private place, and certainly on Thursday as well. You have lunch separate to the students, but as you're wandering around, you might be going, "God, that was an amazing application. God, they sound great," or the opposite, and that could be very, very upsetting. And I think Cam made the excellent point, and Katie as well, about the fact that under no circumstances do you talk to the students afterwards about their application. You can say it's lovely weather or whatever else you want to talk about, but not what you discovered as part of your adjudication process, because that can be very upsetting. And they may come up and ask you, and you can just say, "It was lovely to meet you. Really enjoyed meeting you." You will get feedback back after the awards, and it was a pleasure to meet you, and your society sounds lovely. Something completely neutral. You don't have to be going, "I can't talk to you," like that either. And I suppose, did we discuss, and you will discuss that on Thursday, just about the art of making people feel at ease in the interview? And I know that you touched on it briefly. So the way that you create the room, the way that you introduce yourselves, you'll find some people are really, really nervous. So making that little bit of effort to make them feel comfortable will pay dividends for you.
Yeah, we will go through all of that, like the interview style and in what way it's going to work on Wednesday itself. But yes, it's just important. Again, if there's only 2 of you that are on the panel, or if there's 3 on the panel, one of you go out and actually bring the society in. They can have a maximum of 4 people if it's a society one, and if it's an individual or a refresher, they can bring 1 additional person with them. So just to note that. But again, once you're in your panels, we'll tell you all this information again. Right. Guys, thanks, Emil. We will see you all on Wednesday.
Cheers.
And rest up, because you're going to be reading a hell of a lot over the next couple of days.
Cam, Sean, and Katie, if you're there, it should be great to stay for a minute.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
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 Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, there we are. Oh, Alfie, hi. Alfie, can you go away? Oh, Alfie isn't even there. Remove. Goodbye, Alfie. Now. Okay, Alfie's in my office. Right. Don't report. Oh, I had to report her. Okay, so there's something weird with the best video application. I CC'd you in on that. It's not adding up anything in the last sheet for some reason.
Oh.
That's Sean's one.
Yeah,
and
look at it.
yeah, so I CC'd you in on the email, and I so that you definitely have. So I sent one first, and I realized that I'd made a copy of it accidentally, and I sent them, and then I removed the copy, and that was the one that I actually sent to them. So the one that's in there is shared with them as well. You see Jake and Ollie is on it. You sent me the best mental health. That's it. That's grand, Katie. I'm going to share that with them, and I will make the best green out of the ones that we had.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've never sent best
I
green.
No, I know we haven't, but it's a new person and they're very engaged, and they were at the training today.
Okay. Deadly.
So I thought, yeah, let's go mad.
Let me just say if I have a copy of the Best Grain Initiative one, like I might not.
I 100%
up
have it.
Oh,
I did up one, yeah. So
Oh,
no
okay.
problem. I'll get that out to them this evening. Anyway, it's going to be great crack.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Have we enough adjudicators?
Yep. So I did a very quick version of what the panels could look like, and we're not that stuck. The only thing is, again, as I know I said it, we've a lot of large college judges that are all brand,
Yes.
and we've very little small college judges or small college judges with experience.
So we'll have to wait and see what comes in as well.
That's what I mean. So
Yes.
I have it done up at the moment. Like there's a couple of panels here that have only 2 on them, in the large college category. So, and then I've combined already. Now again, this might change. I've combined best departmental and most improved for large and small together. But again, that might change if there's loads of
Yeah, I could imagine we'd get loads of large. I would imagine we could get a lot of most improved, because
yeah, it was combined a couple of years ago. That's how I know from it.
yeah,
Like,
best CC always ends up, best civic charity
yeah,
always ends up as a possibility for combining. But as long as you've got, like, if you have an experienced adjudicator, to be honest with you, they just need one person is low.
yeah, no, that's what I mean. So like I have everybody who's on the large college, if they're in like a head adjudicator for the large colleges, they have experience. So it doesn't matter if they only have 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I have our alumni judges in there, and I have like Aoife Kelleher's in there, Shane from MTU is in there, like T that works with me. So we've nobody in most improved.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
I like put T in there because she's got loads of experience doing it.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask Brian Mahoney from USI? Is he judging a specific thing, or is he just down to judge?
Brian is just coming down to judge.
Okay, Grant. So I have him in there as well. That's
But
fine.
I don't think that he has any specific experience. Yeah.
No, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So no, like it should be fine. It should be fine. It looks all
Lovely.
good. And then I have the vote on the wall, the external.
Great. Like my Brianna Madden is a staff member, and she has judged ours twice, and she
Who's
is
this? Sorry, Rena.
Brina Madden.
Oh, Brina Madden. Okay, Brianna
Yeah,
Madden.
and she is the coordinator of our employability award. So she's
Okay,
a
deadly.
mature, very experienced person who has judged ours twice. It might come across.
She would have no links to your societies, would she?
Yeah, like when she comes, you can ask her about her loyalty.
Okay. I'll do that. No problem.
Yeah, because if you're not, like, I know that Paula can distance herself now, you know, but it can be very hard on your first time, because what you
Can I
end up
ask,
doing
Abby,
is,
is Lorraine coming down, or is Lorraine
yeah,
doing?
Lorraine is adjudicating.
Okay, right. Sorry, I thought Claire told me that she was adjudicating but remotely, and I was like,
No, she's coming, and she's bringing her niece,
Okay.
who is in TY, who'll be there as a body to help.
Oh, brilliant.
And Lorraine isn't staying on the Thursday night for the awards, but she's coming on
Okay.
Wednesday, and yeah,
Into-
so she'll be able to judge anything.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll have her down.
Yeah.
That's all
And
good.
she's coming from us, with us. We're paying for her, even
Yeah.
though she is.
UL. She put down
but
UL
UL.
in there. Reg.
I know. That's because she's working for
do
UL, but I invited her. Okay, sounds good. Grant, we'll see you tomorrow. You coming at 2:30.
I should arrive about 2:30. Yeah.
Lovely. We hope to leave at 11:30. Reality out the door. So I can pick you up somewhere, Sean.
I can meet you somewhere either, whatever.
Well, you see, we're going to go out the Tune Road.
Okay.
And I have to stop by what you call it? I print that to pick up the poster and photo.
And do you have room in the car for a case, Rena, in the boot or anything like that?
I'm sure we'll fit you in. Yes.
Okay,
I'm
perfect.
also going on my extended holidays. So
I also.
right.
yeah. So we don't have great crack, but there's only 4 of us in the car.
Yes.
So we've room in the back, between the 2 people in the back seat as well.
Okay, Grant.
Excellent.
Great.
I look forward to it. And we'll see you,
Perfect.
Katie.
See you tomorrow, guys.
Yeah.
See
Okay,
you tomorrow.
bye.
Catch you tomorrow.
Bye.